fascinated with shoes. And of course, she had problem with her legs. They had to have surgery on her legs. And surgery also with her eyes. And she's had little problems, physical problems, health problems, and slightly handicapped with her left hand. But she's doing okay, and she works part-time at this athletic store selling shoes.
That's good.
But she's still looking for a job and goes to night school. She got her master's from Nebraska, University of Nebraska, but she's taken other courses in adult school, I guess, And now she's taking up cooking.
That's a useful skill. Just to change gears a little bit, of course, when I first met you was through the pilgrimage.
Okay.
And I'm just curious if you could tell us the story of how you became involved with the Manzanar Committee, the pilgrimage.
Well, in Hawaii, I learned about evacuation because my brother had to go to camp. And he married someone while he was in camp, a wonderful Sumako. Then I saw clips in those days. Movies had newsreel, right? And they had a segment on the evacuation. And what they showed was the women getting their hair at the beauty shop, guys playing on the field, just having a great time, great vacation. That's all I knew about camp. Then when I came out here, and when I met some of my wife's families in Upland, I hear they talk about Manzanar, but I had no clue what Manzanar was. I had no clue about anything about Manzanar, about what the camp was really about. All I know is that they went to camp, that's about it. So my interest in camp wasn't really that much. And I wasn't even aware of a pilgrimage. Then one day, Reverend came to me. What was his name now? No, not L. The holiness guy from West Valley. He was Kimura, Reverend Ren Kimura, that's right, Reverend Ren Kimura. He was the Christian pastor that was doing the pilgrimage. I don't know how long he did it. But he said to me, he can't make it this year. Would I pinch hit for him? I said, oh, okay. That was my first experience with Manzanar. And at that time, they always had the truck on the truck bed, and that's where they had the meetings. And so that was my first experience being on the truck. And then the second year, it was about the second year, I noticed, then we'll go to the monument. I noticed that, we had this wonderful pilgrimage and services, and we had our prayers, Christian prayers, and the Buddhists had this. It was only Buddhists and us, that's all. Just two of us. And so I noticed that, the Buddhists did it real nice. They had a Buddhist priest on, and they had the symbols out there. But the Christian didn't have anything. In fact, we came in boots. All for the weather, It was okay, And I was by myself, where the Buddhists had, 3-4 people together. because of the chanting. It was really nice. They did a good job. So I said, well, maybe we need to have a little bit more too. So then I figured, well, the Buddhists were all in Japanese. We were in English. But there was no audience participation. So I thought, well, then we better do something about that. Then I figured, well, we'll have a litany. So then I wrote something out about litany, taking one of the Psalms, and I wrote, rephrased it on the sands of Manzanar, things like that. I believe that was the first one I wrote. And then I made the cross, because we didn't have a cross, we didn't have a symbol. I figured, gee, Christians should have a symbol too, because for their sake, it's not about me. It's about the Lord, about God, and what He did to the people, what He was there with the people, and it's about the people and the suffering. But they need a symbol too. And Buddhists were doing it right. We weren't doing quite exactly right, to me anyway. It wasn't quite full. So I brought in there. So I came early one year, and then looked around the monument and found some material for the cross, put that together, and found a piece of wood to put it on. And I figured, there's something else. Oh, barbed wire. They had barbed wire. So at that time, it wasn't the national site yet. So things were still around. So I cut off some barbed wire and wound it around the cross. And then got some rocks to hold the cross in place. And did what I can to and put it on the board. I don't know if I got the board from, I must have gotten it from there too. A piece of board. There are things around, So that's how I got the Manzanar cross. Then from then on, we start using that, and we had the litany, because the litany, the pastor says something, and the people respond. It seemed to work out all right. And then we have our prayers. So this was the format while I was doing it. So I think they're still following some of that. But more and more I began to think about it. This is a very, very important thing for the community. This was a thing that changed the whole lives. We have to remember this place. We have to remember to come here, not forget. Like 4th of July, we don't forget what happened, even though it may be scant in our memory, but to observe it and to at least know what it was about. And this is what changed the whole sense, the outlook we have on life, about people, about the country, what freedom means. It's not free. You got to work for it. And it's not guaranteed. Only guarantee you have is on paper. But you better know what the paper is saying. You better know that what's in that paper. You can't just say, well, the Constitution says it, but not knowing what the Constitution says. Like people say, well, it's in the Bible. Is it really? It may not be from the Bible. Like some people say, well, doesn't the Bible say God helps those who help themselves? Not in my Bible. You won't find it in there. And sometimes they say, well, the Bible says eat, drink, and be merry. That's right. But that's only one part. What does it say right after that? It says, you fool, tonight your soul is required of you. You don't read that part. And they say, well, the Bible says peace on earth, goodwill toward men. That's right. But you don't read right after that. With whom God is pleased. Not everybody. with whom God is pleased, peace on earth, goodwill toward men. He wants it for everybody, but it only comes to those who love him, with whom God is, it's not that you are pleased with God, but whom God is pleased with. Is he pleased with you? And so we have to understand that freedom is not just there. Somebody has to enforce it. And somebody has to enforce it properly. This is why we have the Supreme Court to see that it's been done properly, you know. And even then we have to watch them. I'm sorry to say that, but even then we have to watch them too. And so I felt this was a changing, this was the changing moment for the Japanese community, you know.
What was your...
And so then I figured I really got involved in it.
What was your involvement with Sue Embry?
Since I was doing this to the Interfaith Committee. First, it was not the Interfaith Committee, the Interfaith Group. The Interfaith Group is one that, you know, I worked to get it started too. It started with Warren Frutani's group in UCLA. They were to celebrate the 50th anniversary the following year. And so Warren Frutani felt that instead of just keeping it on campus, let's do it community-wise. So then he sent out letters to community leaders to come out to a meeting to discuss this matter. So I went. Then at that meeting, I had suggested, don't forget the role of the church in this whole process of the evacuation. Don't forget. I kept saying that every meeting. Then one meeting after they had decided on a community gathering, then he said, the first hour, we're going to give the interfaith group 1 hour to do their thing. I said, oh, wow. I didn't know we were going to have in a whole hour. I just said to remember us or knew whatever. And, you know, whatever way they want to remember with a prayer, whatever it is, but to remember that we're there. And our role in it was very, very crucial to the evacuation. So I had to get busy to organize an interfaith group. So I went to the Buddhists and to the Christians, and we got a group together. And after the and then we had this meeting. We discussed what kind of meeting we're going to have. They're going to have a forum. And our meeting was the first one that, well, I think it was 8 o'clock, I think. I said, who's going to come out at 8 o'clock? You know, but the room was packed. Wow. And then after the meeting, at our next meeting, they wanted to continue. My thought was after they were going to be disbanded. But they felt how important it was that we get together and talk to each other. So, okay, so they had me to be the chair. I had the chair, and we did it now for quite a while. We got together, and the Manzanar was still just outside of the interfaith. But then later on, I said, well, maybe we should make it interfaith. So I moved it to the interfaith group. And from the interfaith group, then we started to have this Manzanar Pilgrimage. And then followed the pattern that we started. Because I know how important this whole thing was about for the Japanese community. And for me too, because my brother was in camp. His wife and the family were in camp. My wife was in camp for a while. And what she did go after college, but her mother was in camp her father was taken away on December 7th, simply because, well, she's going to tell you that story. That's not mine to say. But here again, it was the defining moment for our community. We had to have this pilgrimage. We have to take part in it. We have to do it right. And it's not about us personally, just ourselves. It's for everybody. And it's to spread, to talk about God's love in times of stress, God's presence in times of loneliness, in times of death, in times of mourning, in times of happiness, of wedding, times of hope, looking for an education, looking for time out, what you're going to do when you leave the camp. They have to have spiritual guidance. And they had it while they were in camp. But now that they're out of camp doesn't mean it's not present, it's still needed. Very much so. That's what life is about. Life is not about ourselves. Life is about God and our relationship to Him. That's what it's all about. It's a mistake to say, oh, I can do what I want. No one can do what you want. Soon you drive out of even in parking lot, you can drive the way you want. You still got to be get in the line, within the lines, So no one can do what they want. It's a mistake. But we have to know how to operate. But God is always there to guide us. And no matter what we say, God has been there with us. And the sooner we recognize and acknowledge it and get to know Him, the better off we are. Sunday is not about becoming good. It's about being with God. Like Thanksgiving, we'll be with the family. Like Christmas, we'll be with the family. But it's about God, what God has done for us, what God is doing for us. That's what life is about. It's not about ourselves. But we have to relay this to the people. So I got involved in it. And when the committee was meeting, I said, well, maybe I better go see the committee myself. So I went in when they announced when they're going to meet. So I went, and I got to be part of the committee.
The Manzanar Committee?
The Manzanar Committee. They were meeting in Little Tokyo, so I went. And so we did, And I got to know Sue. Really that lady is something to really admire. She really worked hard at it. And the people really appreciated her. Because she was right there, and she kept the focus always clear. What we have to do, what we need to do, how we probably could do it, and who's doing what. She had it pretty much organized, very much organized. And, she was fair, she was gracious, but she didn't budge. And but I know she suffered a lot. I feel that she suffered a whole lot for the camp to get this thing going and to establish this place. And Rose was next to her, always there too, together with all the others, of course. They were all of them were supporting her because they trusted her. And she was some lady, really, and very humble, very gracious. But I know she was tough. You have to be. You have to be. And you can't be any other way. And but to be fair and to keep things in line, that's not easy. It's not easy. And but she did a good job. She followed through, excellent job. And that's why I always think, they really should have something more out here saying about her role, in the committee's role in, there's nothing out there except the guard tower. But it's a guard tower. But there's nothing, no plaque, no pictures or anything of the role that she did. And I think they should have, in you know, they should have that because of all what she had to go through. And it's a service to the nation, not only to the community, a service to the nation, what she's done for this place. And we should. And DWP trying to put something up there, it's an insult. That's what I think. They're very insensitive, you know. And this is a national site. It's for the whole nation. They should show some respect for it. And I don't think they're doing that. They're doing an awful thing. And with all the land they have spread all over the place, they could go any place. But why? They've always been giving us problem. Remember? Before they bought this place, before they couldn't establish until we got that piece of land that they owned. And they wouldn't let it go for a long time. And Sioux suffered over that, you know. And but now they want to put something like that up. You know, why over here? And with all the majestic mountains. But the mountains are there. It's important to be there unobstructed, so we can feel we can feel the breeze, we can feel the wind, we can see the dust, we can feel the cold, we can feel the heat, the loneliness of the place. But when you put something like that, it destroys all that. It's not a service to the land, not a service to the country for the people who come to see, oh, you know, they got solar panels, it's modern. It doesn't give you a sense of that loneliness, of the pain of being in a hostile environment. It doesn't when you see something like that. And if they cannot see all that, you know, there's something wrong with those people who are planning it. And there really should be you know, the president and the mayor should come down and tell those guys, go find some other place. But it's a terrible thing they're doing. But anyway, that's kind of off the subject a little bit.
How were you involved in the redress movement? I understood you were involved in NCRR.
Well, when NCRR got started, I didn't know much about it either. I didn't know much about anything myself.
At that time,
But
it was National Coalition.
Coalition of Redress and Reparations.
Okay.
And but I read in the paper, they were just getting kind of started too. So they were having a meeting at a home there in Gardena. So I went to the meeting to learn more about it. And during that meeting, then they were looking for a place to meet. So, oh, okay. Well, if you want, you can use my church. You know, it's a small church. Just right for your group. You know, this church, this building's about right. The whole building's only about 1,100 square feet. I mean, you know. And I don't know how large this one is, but so I said, well, it's a nice little place. You can come take a look. And then they agreed they like to use it. So I loaned them a key. You come in by yourself and use whatever you want, you know. And so that's how I got involved with them too. But then I went to the meetings later on. They met for I don't know how many months, close to a year, I think, at our church. I didn't go and bother them. I just left them alone. And then when they met in Little Tokyo, then I used to go to their meetings in Little Tokyo. And got to know Bert Nakano. And Bert Nakano also knew my wife's family because she went to school, to their language school. Well, he knew about the family. Well, you can ask Cliff about it. But anyway, and I got to meet some of the great leaders over there. And so I stayed with them as long as I could, you know. And then after that, then I worked with the Manzanar Committee. I try not to get too spread out, and so I focus one thing at a time only. You know, I don't want to get too many things going at one time, because I still had the church things to take care too. So, but that's how I got with the Redress, and I went to the congressional meetings that they had, and I went to that, and felt the pain, heard them, and so I've been quite involved in this whole redress and reparation kind of thing. And when they went to Washington D.C. to meet with us representatives, senators, and representatives, I went along with them. I was in Chicago then for another meeting, and from Chicago I went to Washington D.C. But I was kind of pooped out by that time. But still, you know, I was with them and met with what was his name, senator from Washington. He died not too long ago, a few years back. Very fine man. That was the one. And then I met this veteran, Rudy, from Fresno, I believe. He was handicapped. And he was telling us a story about when they were taking a vote on the redress thing. He had met with a senator from Texas, who was a representative from Texas, whatever it was. He was key to their vote. And so he was in a gallery there up someplace. And then he was told later on that the senator from Texas, whose vote was very important, was a key, I believe. He was going to vote against it, but then he saw Rudy, and that changed his mind, kind of changed his mind, and went through.
We need to pause.
Yeah, at the end of this tape.
Okay.
This is tape 4 of an oral history interview with Reverend Paul Nakamura on May 23rd, 2014. You were just talking about your involvement with the redress movement and meeting with a senator from Texas.
No, I didn't meet with him. Rudy did.
Rudy did, okay.
Yeah. And that was from what I understand, I was told that when the senator, either the senator or representative, I think it was senator, looked up and he saw Rudy, and it reminded him of his conversation with Rudy. I think that made him vote for the redress.
What do you think that the apology meant to people, like the parishioners that you knew?
I think it was very, very important. It kind of brought a healing within people. For now, they were finally recognized. They are now recognized. You know, it shouldn't have to be that way, but that's the way it went. They were recognized to be citizens. That's very important, you know. I heard one story, I don't know how true it was, but I think it must be true because I heard about it, they told me, they were talking about it. That after the war, there's one, I guess he must have been an intern, he came back, but somehow, whoever it was, did not kind of recognize him as a citizen. But he said, I'm an American citizen. And the other guy did not. So finally, he got so angry, upset by the whole thing. He went away, put on a samurai uniform, outfit, and went and killed himself. That's how important it is to be recognized. The healing process comes from within. and the apology did that. The 20,000 was a slap on the wrist. You know, when you lose your home, your property, you sell your goods for what, 10 cents on a dollar? You know, what's it say? It says you're nothing. You're not worth anything. And when they put you behind barbed wires, fence with guards and with guns pointing, you know, the film shows that. Right? They say we're going to put you away for your own protection. And then they put you inside of barbed wires with guards and with guns pointing at them. What kind of protection is that? You know. And then when they give you a questionnaire that says, will you renounce your allegiance to the Emperor of Japan? Well, who is the Emperor of Japan? Never been to Japan. Never had any ties or loyalty to Japan except through my parents and my faith. You know, so for the government to say, I'm sorry, we did this, and they at least put out some money for it, which isn't much, but still something, it brings kind of a healing. The rest of the healing must take place outside. It's on your own what you do with it. Complete healing comes only what you do with it afterwards. If you let go your anger, you let go of all those bad things and go on with your life. And live as a citizen that you really are, that you claim to be, and not pretend to be the citizen, but you are the citizen. You are an American. And this is where many of our immigrant folks especially have to understand. Because in their mind, when you say an American, it means a white person. But they have to understand, you are also an American. I had a Bible class, Bible school, and summer Bible school, and had some Korean children there. The folks, must have just come over from Korea not too long ago, but they were born over here. And so they were talking to each other. One of us saying, yeah, well, you know, talk about being Korean American, you know, Korean things. And one of them said, no, I'm an American. See? They have to learn what it means to be an American. And the best definition I've heard about is from when I was at the Danish church. You know, I served a year with the Danish church as an interim pastor. That here, this elderly gentleman said, an American is one who is himself, who identifies himself, as an American in an American situation. And that's what he means. To be yourself, not somebody else. Not what somebody tell you who you are, but who you are as God intended you to be, his servant, his child, to be yourself. And this is what the whole thing is about going to church, to be yourself in Christ Jesus. And so this is the whole thing about being yourself. Who are you connected with? Are you connected with in life, in your behavior in life, with what somebody tells you, or what you believe God has created you to be? To me, that is what it means to be yourself, to understand yourself in the sight of God and to live that life. Nothing else. And so this whole matter about evacuation, about the apology, is to release oneself from what people have said, the government has said of who you are. They've thrown many false things about who we are. But now they have released you to be at least an American. Now, what does it mean to be an American? Right? What does it mean to be an American? That's a good question, really. You know, and we need to understand again what it means to be an American. This is where you have to understand the Constitution, what the Constitution is saying. The Constitution frees you to be yourself, not somebody else. Not to be like a movie actor or actress, or not to be like a politician, or not to be even like a teacher or somebody. You can model yourself somewhat along somebody's pattern, so you have a pattern too, but better be a good pattern. And but one who is a full person. That's who you want to pattern yourself, model yourself with, you know. And the apology does that. And the redress does that. The reparation does that. You got to put that all together in context, not out of context as a lot of people do in reading the scriptures, but to read it in context, to see life in its context, and where you fit into that context. And this is what the evacuation is supposed to also do, to get us out of our community, of our ethnic community, in a way that we can be ourselves, being thankful for what we have learned through our community, the many of the values that we've learned from our old folks, from our parents and elders, to understand what they're saying and how it fits, but not everything, but not even their definition might fit. You have to make a new definition about what it means. What does it mean to be gamang? What does it mean to be enlio? You know, we still don't know really what it really means. But not from what we observe all the time, but something of what it really means deep inside. They have deep meanings, to try to grasp that meaning and to understand it and to live it. And evacuation, the return, the apology, all that, and what the soldiers did on the battlefield was to come to this point where we can be ourselves. And it's to understand what that means. That's how I see it. And the redress, you know, I felt it's a defining moment for us as the people, but as individuals also, that we can be ourselves. And no matter what anyone says, this is who I am in the sight of God, because at the end, who do I meet? I got to meet God. He's the one I got to meet. Nobody else. Who determines where I'm going to go? He's going to determine. Nobody else going to determine that. So, what is that he wants me to do, wants me to be,